All right, we are live. It is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Time to break down some good stuff about Strongman. Heck yeah. So, tonight we're going to talk about the intangibles, or you could also call these extracurriculars. These are things that impact your success as an athlete, right? If you saw my story or you saw me post anywhere on social media today, really the gist of this is that you can be the strongest person at a competition. You might be the most athletic. You maybe had one of the best training programs and training preps of your entire life. But if you do not execute at the show, then it's all for nothing. Right? So I have used a lot of these tools myself. I do not view myself as anybody that is particularly genetically blessed or talented, but I've learned through a lot of trial and error just strategies to help you execute, right? So we're going to kind of break those down. I'm going to go ahead and get right into this. If you guys are joining me, first off, thanks for being here. But feel free to drop in some questions. I'd love to make this interactive and talk through all this stuff with you guys. So, intangibles. So not much of this is going to really talk again about like how to lift something or how to train physically for it. This is all about, showing up to your highest potential, right? So the very first one is, I'm just going to write environment. Now, what you need to do with your environment is you need to scope out in advance what the environment is going to be like, right? Because it's going to be really different if, let's say you're doing World's Strongest Manatee coming up, that show is entirely on turf, right? That's going to change your approach to if you're doing it, well, it's on grass, but whatever. It's different if it's on grass. It's different if it's on turf. It's different if it's on rubber mats. It's different if you're on a smoothed, polished concrete floor. So the thing you need to be doing as an athlete is scoping out your environment and planning ahead while you're getting ready for this competition to know all the factors that are involved with this. Okay, so very simple. Shoes. Your footwear makes a big difference, right? Now, good cross trainers are going to work in just about any environment, but sometimes turf, you get that rubber mulch that's on the ground, that can be a little slick. So if you're used to having something that grips rubber floor really well, that's not going to grip quite in the same way. So you just have to really scope that out. Now, the other things that go into your environment, let's relate this to World's Strongest Manatee, it's going to be outside, right? If you're used to doing a log press and you're looking straight up at the ceiling, you pick a spot, it's way up high, you're good at like locking in and having a focal point to focus on. But that's going to be completely different outdoors. You might be staring straight up at the sun. So you need to be prepared that maybe you're going to need sunglasses. This is also the same if you're in any sort of environment with a lot of bright lights. So at OSG, this was in an arena. They had extra lighting on top of that. It's very bright out on that competition floor because all eyes are on you. They have a camera crew, a production team. They're making it a big event. So it was better for me to block out some glare, to not have really any reflection or distractions, to wear sunglasses when I was doing that event. It was not because I looked cool. It was an actual strategic decision. And you'll see a lot of people are going to come to this competition and they're going to be unprepared. They're going to get under those first few reps of that log, roll it up, and they're going to totally lose themselves because they don't have something to look at. So just factor this in to how you're going to dress, how you're going to train, and how you're going to act with your warm-ups. Now, this is also true if you're used to working out in a air-conditioned gym all the time, and now you're going somewhere where it's really hot. It can also work the other way. Let's say you're used to training in an outdoor environment where it's really warm, and you warm up really, really quickly. You're going to need to take extra warm-up protocols if you're inside somewhere with a lot of AC. So you just have to play to the environment. Okay. So that's a really easy, simple one out the gate. Gonna have to excuse me. I'm just getting over a cold here. So if I have a few sniffles, I apologize in advance. Bear with me. So number two, this is kind of an easy one, but sleep. Okay. Now I've been to competitions where I've stayed at Airbnbs with other people, and some of them have stayed up late into the night to talk or hang out. And like, listen, I know you're probably staying with your friends and your buddies, but it's really not the time to socialize. You need to make sure that you are locking in your sleep patterns and habits. So a lot of this is just going into extra preparedness. Now, if you're somebody who gets a lot of competition jitters and nerves and anxiety, plan ahead. Maybe you have a sleep supplement that works really well for you. The best one I can recommend is magnesium, specifically magnesium glycinate. That's good at relaxing your nervous system and getting you into a calm state. So if you need a little bit of extra help, that might be something that you need to lock in on. Now, with sleep, I'm going to go ahead and put down number three is comfort. Okay. So, comfort, I'm going to relate this specifically to where you're staying the night before a competition. So, for most of the shows that I go to, I do have to travel out of town, and it takes some scouting in advance. There are some places that I know, certain hotel chains, they have specific types of bedding that is going to be very comfortable. I also need to know like what the environment and the setting around that sleeping place is. So I've stayed at hotels before where they're right on the main strip of a busy downtown drag, and you can hear cars and motorcycles and sometimes police sirens going on throughout the night. You need to be making sure that you're getting good sleep and you're comfortable to be at your best. So these are some extra things that you can plan ahead with. Like I said before, magnesium is a great sleep supplement. But two, things like an eye mask, or I've even known people that have traveled with blackout curtains to all the competitions that they go to ensure that they're getting this level of comfort that they need, right? It's also a good idea to maybe travel with some earplugs. If you're somebody that really requires a good, quiet environment, if you're staying at a hotel, then you could have anybody in that room next to you. You could have anybody outside just farting around. So these are all things that we are trying to help you ease in gently so you can show up and be at your best. So number one so far again is environment. Think about the weather. Think about if it's indoors, outdoors, what you can do to mitigate those elements. Two, sleep. What can you do to have your best possible night's sleep the day before? Three, comfort. But one thing I'll say about sleep as well, if you're an athlete that does a weight cut, sometimes that can be pretty harsh on your sleep. So just make sure that you're taking extra precautions. Now, for me, when I'm doing a big weight cut, I save a really, really big chunk as much as I can for the morning before I weigh in. So that could be anywhere from 5 to 6 pounds that I'm saving to cut off just to ensure that I'm not like totally wiped, dehydrated, and parched, which would ruin my night's sleep. This also goes into all these factors. Like, do you need air conditioning? Do you need to bring a fan with you? Do you like a white noise machine? These are all things to just plan ahead, right? It's not the chance to, or it's not the time to just wing it and assume you're going to have a fine sleep or a fine condition. Okay. Number 4. We're going to get into game day stuff in just a minute, but these are so far the factors leading into a competition. Okay. Pack extra. We've all been to a competition where either you or somebody you know does not have, they forgot their wrist straps, or their wrist straps ripped or broke or something like that. So when you're packing your bag and you're getting ready for competition, you should be considering what do you need as a backup, right? Chances are very good that there's going to be plenty of chalk at any strongman competition that you go to, but you shouldn't really take that chance. You should pack some chalk of your own. I always travel to shows with liquid chalk. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I do not. But in a certain setting where there's just none available, you don't want to be caught up the creek without anything there. So it just helps. Now, sometimes too, this could apply to different types of things like sandbags and other implements where normal chalk is not going to get the job done. Relating back to your environment, if it's really hot out, I tend to find that having liquid chalk tends to stay drier on your forearms, hands, and other places like your shirt, even sometimes. So you're not sweating off and just losing a whole bunch of that. On top of packing extra underwear, you never really know. Extra shorts, you never know. For me, sometimes I like to wear tights under like my deadlift suit or my shorts. So I would like to have an extra set of those. You just never know. Jal says, I forgot my shoes on Friday and had to turn around an hour into my trip for Florida's Strongest Man. Thank God my dad met me halfway. Yeah, so you just have to lay all that stuff out and plan ahead. So Colton Hasenfratz, who's a great competitor, I always see him the day before he's going into his shows. He lays out every single piece of equipment. He has a checklist. He probably goes over that thing 2 or 3 times, and he makes sure that he's got every piece of equipment that he needs for each event. So that's your belt, hard belt, soft belt, knee sleeves, elbow sleeves, and then sometimes extras. Okay. So these are all things going into the competition itself. But then when you show up on game day, here's what you need to do from the very get-go. Okay. Number 5. Is own some space. All right. So a lot of times we're competing at shows where there's a ton of people and or there is limited setup. So it's really beneficial to you to get there early and to lock down a comfortable space for you to put your bag and hold that spot for the rest of the day. If you're somewhere that's outside or an outdoors arena environment, then it needs to be out of the sun, right? Now, with these other things, such as environment, right? If you're allowed to bring in a canopy, you should definitely do that. If you're allowed to bring in chairs, just so you have a comfortable place to sit, you should do that. But this all goes into understanding the environment that you're going to be in, right? I, as a promoter, try to tell everybody with as much detail as possible going in, like what to expect, because I want them to be comfortable and able to just get right in. And if you don't know what you're setting, what your environment is like, you need to just ask the promoter. They should answer you. If not, ask your other competitors. Another thing to do on owning your own space is, I think, to match a good level of comfort is get around some good people. There's always people at competitions that are just an energy mismatch for some reason. Maybe they're too intense, or maybe they're too silly. Maybe they're not serious whatsoever. So find somewhere that you can put your stuff down in an area where you're going to be able to prepare and be at a mood that suits you. Right? Very simple. 6. Why don't we just say it right there? I was going to save this for later, but mood, and I'm going to couple this with mood and adaptability. Okay, so mood is one of the things that you can control all the time. If you're really tense and you're going in and putting a lot of pressure on yourself for an event, it's very easy to get into a mode where you're thinking, if things are perfect or if things are not perfect, then I'm going to be at a disaster. Or if things are not perfect, I'm going to have a hard time. The truth is, there is no such thing as perfect circumstances for any show that you're going to go to. you're probably not going to be able to warm up the way that you want. You're probably not going to have endless pieces of equipment to warm up with, the perfect set of plates to do the exact things that you want. But combining with packing extra, if you're ready to be adaptable, then bring some bands with you so that you can get the right warm up, right muscle groups, all of that stuff. Now, also, too, you have to be strategic and understand what the flow of the show is like so you know how much time you have to warm up and what some smart jumps are, right? This is one of the things that's so important as an athlete is to, this is a good enough point in itself. So let's go ahead and write this one down. Is know your pace. Okay, know your pace. Pace is kind of broad in this sense, but I'm going to say this in the sense of a lot of shows run very fast and a lot of shows run very slow. If you have somebody with you, such as a coach or somebody that's out in the stands watching, it's a really good idea to pay attention to how quickly they are moving along with the flow of the show. Heats typically are posted, or you have some sort of an idea of the working order of each event. So you should gauge your warm-ups with adaptability based on how quick or slow something is going. At every single show that I've ever been to, does not matter which one, every single one, there are people that are warming up way too quickly and also way too slow. So what you need to make sure that you are doing is knowing those reasonable warm-up times. And that's different for everything, right? Because for deadlifts, if we're doing a really heavy high-end maximal, it could be okay to have about 10 minutes in between a warm-up and a final warm-up and your actual floor attempts. If we're doing something like a log, it doesn't really work the same way. I feel like my chest and shoulders need to be primed and worked a little closer to the actual event itself. Same with things like sandbags. If you're already pretty warmed up and you're doing some light sandbag runs, then you can get away with having a lot more time in between your warm-ups and the event itself. So just a story that I have here, at USS Nationals last year in Denver, there was 600 people at the show. There were 2 yokes to warm up with in the back. Now, there were orderly lines for the use of the yoke, but the problem is that people had to adjust their heights back and forth. I tried to get people together to get yoke runs in so that we could keep the same height and go quicker, but it wasn't working, and that's okay. But what I did instead, because of adaptability, is I knew, okay, if I can get one touch on the yoke within about 5 to 10 minutes of when I'm going, and then just warm up really, really well, then I shouldn't have a problem. These are other things you need to do as well, is have the confidence that your abilities and your adaptability is going to carry you into a good, successful performance. So what are the things that you need to do for a yoke, for example? So I'll give you my thought process as this was happening. I didn't know how long I had until I was going, so I would literally run from the warm-up area out to the floor to see, okay, well, Joseph's going. So that gives me about 14 more people until I'm up, probably about 20 minutes of time. So I'm going to wait in line here for a minute, hold my place. But in between, I'm going to start doing some dynamic warm-ups. I'm going to get my legs going. The yoke at the time, it was 650, which is not a super heavy maximal yoke. So I knew that speed was going to be a very critical element of this. It was less important for me to get a bunch of time getting my hands on the yoke and getting some runs in. So I shifted my whole warm-up and focus into some sprint type drills, some priming, things that would make sure that my back, core, and upper back were engaged. So I would use a band, just some pull aparts to strengthen my upper back to mimic how I would feel under the yoke. Do some high knees. I did some quick sprints back and forth. And then with about 5 minutes left, I hit one yoke warm up. The yoke bar was too high, but I did not have enough time to mess around and get back out there. So because I knew the pace, I had to completely change my plan because I did not have the luxury to get a whole bunch of runs in. So, not to go on and on and on. Pay attention to how quick this is moving, right? This is so, so, so important. At every show, I will say it again, at every single show, you will see people that are warming up way too early and also way too late. You do not want to get cold. Now, these things also factor in all over each other. If it's a cold AC room environment, then you're going to need to do something to stay more warm. So even if it's just a couple, jumps back and forth, some squats, whatever, to keep the blood flow going, then that's going to work great. If it's a very warm environment, you can get away with doing a little less because you'll be fresh, right? 8. So this is an interesting one, body language that works back and forth with your mood, okay? So this is something we did in, actually I used to do a lot of comedy and acting and improv classes, and we would do exercises to become a character where we would be cued, all right, now you're going to walk around the room and I want you to envision somebody that's walking with a big chest leading the way, right? So if you were to do that, or just think about somebody that's walking across the room with their chest leading the way, you're going to automatically identify certain traits, certain habits, or certain attitudes that that person has. But on the converse, let's think about somebody that drops their shoulders and their head is looking down at the ground, right? If it's this person, that has a completely different set of attitudes and emotions related to that. So this is a two-way street, because your body language has a direct impact on your mood, and your mood has a direct impact on your body language. So this stuff really matters. We want to make sure that we have confidence going into an event. So if we're on the sidelines, we're getting ready to go, and we're, timid like this, that actually feeds into your self-belief patterns, because your body is holding in a position of somebody that is timid and nervous. No, we want to stand there good, tall, and proud, and confident. And this is a fake it till you make it sometimes situation, right? If you are tense and nervous, first off, you should have a little bit of nerves and anxiety if it's an important competition. Trick your body and trick your brain through using your body. So stand up nice and tall, try to feel your shoulders relax away from your ears, and know that you are somebody who's proud, confident, and ready to go. You have to leave these things behind you, because you should have been training really, really hard for this. So just start assuming the positions of somebody that is ready to do work, okay? If you were going to look at your opponents next to you and they were standing like, oh, that guy's screwed. But if you were standing next to your opponent and they were standing tall, ready to go, nodding their head, maybe even had a little smile on your face, again, just think about the attitudes and the emotions of people when you see that in them. It says a lot, and you can trick your brain into believing in yourself by just embracing those postures. So be careful about this, right? This also means when you're doing these things in the warm-up room and you need to jump in and get a turn, you can't just stand in the back corner like timid and shy and nervous and afraid to jump in. You have to be confident and exude a sense that you belong there and people will follow. It's not a negative thing. It's just owning your space in a friendly, positive way, because you're there to compete, okay? So intangibles, we're going to keep going here. I might go past 10 because I've got a few that are coming up as we go along. 9. Nine is be nice. I say this in almost every presentation. I'm going to come over here. Say this in almost every presentation I do because it's so important. But be nice. You are going to be much more likely to receive good, positive blessings if you are just a nice person. So let's say you're one of these people that forgot your extra wrist straps, or you forgot your elbow sleeves. If you're just a kind, courteous person, it's going to be more likely that somebody will help you out and say, no problem, you can use mine. In the warm-up room, if you're a cool, friendly person, let's say we're doing yoke, people are going to help you set the bar, load plates. But if you're just kind of an aggressive butthole, which I have come across plenty in strongman, people are not going to be as quick to help you out. Okay. And if you're lost, if you run into problems, if you're genuine and sincere, you're just going to have more things magically come your way. So, really being nice is a very important thing because it gets other people to help you out, including your judges. Very important. Another thing that I talk about all the time, but judges are human. So, on a subconscious level, if you're a cool, nice person, they're going to want you to succeed. It is their job just to give you a yes or no, a pass or fail. If you're a butthole, they're going to be subconsciously thinking, ugh, this guy, here we go. Or you're a really nice, friendly person, you're going to get some friendlier down calls. It is just how it happens. And to pretend like this isn't a reality is just ridiculous. Okay, so be nice. Now, this also, again, folds over body language. This also, again, folds over mood and adaptability, folds over owning your space. You're going to have the respect to be in a cool, comfortable environment. You're going to be in a better mood. If you're just a nice, positive person with a nice disposition, you're going to have an easier time being adaptable when things aren't going your way. One thing I talked about in this is the warm-up area, but sometimes events change completely or the weights change the day of a show. So if you've been training, oh, I thought I was going to do X weight on log, or I thought we were going to do X rule set. If you are just generally somebody that's happy to be there, it's not going to matter. You're going to be somebody who will change right away and say, no problem, I'm going to get it done. Versus these other people who need to know what the weights are for an event 4 months out from a competition and then hold on tooth and nail thinking that that's exactly how it's going to be and it's guaranteed. It's not. So be nice, be adaptable. What else? 10. Be ready. So when we're thinking about like the flow of a show, this ties in really well with pace. I was talking about this specifically with how you are getting ready for your events and your actual competition preparation, like on the day of. But being ready is beyond that. That is kind of walking into your routines and your preparations in a way that doesn't take from the flow of the event. So one of the things we want to do as an athlete is get into that zone where we're in the flow state, right? Where we're at these alpha brain waves, which is going to allow you to really focus in and have a very high degree of energy and performance, but without overcoming a lot of, jitters. We've all been in a zone where we're too excited or we get that like overstimulation and we're super energetic, but we can't quite lock in and focus. One of the things that we can do to harness that energy and harness that nerves in is to be ready to, okay, I'm coming up next. I'm in the hole. So I'm going to start getting my wrist wraps on. I'm going to, check my elbow sleeves. Me personally, I like to tuck my shirt in to some events. What that does is it starts getting you a mental trigger that it's time to perform. Okay. So if you have some of those nerves, again, you should have some nerves going into these competitions and these events. If it means something to you, you can calm yourself and get focused by being ready with your routines. Okay. This can be very simple. Sometimes you can have all your gear and your stuff on, but you've got a way that you smack your chest or you stomp your feet. That's a go signal that you are ready to do this lift that is coming up. What's a good technique or supplement to help with nervousness? Horace, we're gonna keep going on that. Yeah. So, I just kind of quickly read that, but Horace is asking, what's a good technique or supplement to help with nervousness? So let me answer that in a few different ways. Being ready and having routines is very important. Okay. There's a lot of different ways to do that. As I just said, maybe you have a certain way that some people bat their chest. I like to use mantras in my head. I say certain things to myself to put me in the zone to know that it's go time, right? If it's going right before a log, I like the feeling of my wrist straps locking on tight before I walk up to that log. You know, there's all sorts of things. I really, really like mantras. I like self-talk. I like speaking to myself with very good, positive affirmations. But another thing that you should be doing beforehand is visualizing how you're going to do at these events. And this is also with a caveat that you need to be attached, disattached, unattached from specific outcomes. So let's say we're doing a log press, for example. Let's relate it to World's Strongest Manatee. World's Strongest Manatee, we're going to be doing a log press, 4 reps. It's going to be outside on the grass at Raymond James Stadium. It's going to be hot, and we're going to be under the sun. So what you need to be doing beforehand is trying to picture intensely and feel it. Don't just see it. Try to smell it, sense it, feel the sun on your body, feel a little bit of sweat dripping down you. If it was me, I would be wearing headbands. I'd be wearing sunglasses, sweatbands. I've got my wrist straps. I've got my belts. I've got my knee sleeves. I've got my shoes. I'm going to feel all of those things on me. And I'm going to create a mental picture and a mental movie in my head of me doing these reps over and over successfully, right? So when we do that, going into competition, we are going to be comfortable with the nerves because we have been rehearsing this so often that if just nerves are present in that situation, you've been layering down this mental pattern in your head of having a successful performance. So that's going to overcome any sort of crippling nerves or anxiety. At least it should, right? Now, I want to really, really reiterate this. I've said it several times in this presentation alone that nerves are normal and nerves are good. Try to frame these as just raw energy, okay? If you were to think of an emotion where your heart is beating really fast and you're jittery, that could describe a couple different things. That could describe just anxiety by itself, but it could also describe excitement. If you were on a roller coaster, your heart rate's going to be beating really fast. You're going to be feeling a whole big rush of intensity, and you might be shaking a little bit because you're so excited. So what you want to try and do is reframe these things that you are feeling in a positive, because energy is neutral, and it's really all about how you frame it and what you channel it into. Okay. If you're going to sit there and think like, I'm so nervous, then you are going to continue to be and get more nervous. But if you're feeling that heart rate is elevated, you're feeling that rush of energy, you're looking out and you're seeing all those people out there, you're in a new environment, you're going to test yourself out in front of all these people. You say, man, I'm so excited. I've been training so hard. Like, this is going to be great. Then it is going to lead to a positive outcome. So that is how I would say to handle nerves going into competition. The thing is that there's not really much of a supplement for that, because I do think you need to maintain this high level of energy. Anything that would bring you down is only going to decrease your performance. So it's about finding that flow state where we're really excited, but also calm enough to stay focused and ride that wave of energy into good performance. I hope that answers your question. So I'm going to keep going with a few more here. So we have, again, scout your environment. You need to make sure you're sleeping good, specifically the night before. You need to make sure that you're comfortable all the time. You got to pack extra stuff in your bag. Own your space at the competition. Mood and adaptability. You have to be adaptable on game day, because nothing ever really goes perfectly according to plan. There's no such thing as a perfect set of circumstances. You need to pace yourself with your warm-ups and how you're getting ready for each specific event. You need to be practicing good body language. We'll say once again, these all draw together. If you are nice and you're holding good positive body language, that is going to carry over into your mood and into your willingness and flexibility to change when things don't go according to plan. And also, you have to be ready. Nobody likes that person who, when their name is called, now they're getting their straps on. Now they're doing this. It throws everybody off. But let's say you're in a heat and that's happening and you're waiting on somebody. Just draw back to all this stuff. Just be adaptable keep giving yourself those positive mantras and lock into it. So, other things here. First off, just ask. Looks like we got 9 in here right now. I'd be happy to field any more questions if you have them. I'm just gonna go a little all over now. Don't make mistakes. Don't make mistakes. This seems very obvious. See, I'm getting the reflection right now, but I just wrote here, do not make mistakes. If we're in control of our mood, if we are ready and focused, using good body language, if we've been visualizing and focusing on how we're going to perform technically in these events, we should not be making mistakes. But you have to guarantee that whatever it is that you're just executing well. In events such as carry medleys, farmers walks, many people mess up because they rush too quickly, they get a bad grip, or they get a bad pickup or whatever it is on the sandbag or the farmer's implements. And even though they're one of the fastest people in the entire field, one drop is going to cost them huge, significant placings. I have seen one person do this over and over and over and over again, and I continue to beat them, and they should not be beating me at some of these specific events, all right, specifically carries. Me and this guy, we're going to run head-to-head in a 100-meter dash. He'd probably win every time, but because we're doing a sandbag relay and he keeps dropping it, then I continue to beat him, okay? So this is one of these areas where if you're not the fastest, most athletic person, if you just do it correctly and don't rush, you're going to score really big points. Magnesium glycinate. I'm gonna punch that in the chat here. So the type of magnesium I recommended. Boom. Magnesium glycinate really helps a lot. I've also got some other good sleep aids that I really enjoy that are good. So lots to do here. All right. Now, kind of ran overboard here. So I'm just going to come up and talk to the camera straight up for a minute here. When we're going through all of these things, other things that we can think about with pace is judging how the overall flow of the show is going to run and using things like our caffeine very purposefully. So when we scout out ahead, you should kind of know what events are more favorable to have more of this excitement and enthusiasm going in. So for example, when I was doing the official Strongman games this past year, the log press was first on day 1 and the car yoke was second on day 2. For me personally, I know that if I'm a little more lasered up here, I can get away with having a higher level of adrenaline on a yoke than I can for a log press. So I had only a very, very small amount of caffeine going into that log press because I have to focus on many more technical things in that lift than when I do on a yoke, okay? But now let's look at some other like 5 event competitions. So World's Strongest Manatee, for example. Events are subject to change, but for right now, the plan is to have log press, sandbag throws, conditioning medley, the farmer's 40-meter dash, and Atlas stones. So if I was looking at that, if I was going to be competing in these, I would have a similar game plan. 1, I would be probably saving my caffeine, maybe having like an espresso or something small or like a quarter scoop of pre-workout, like just enough to wake me up just a little bit for events 1 and 2, because I don't find that I need to be very technically focused on the log press to do well there. And then number 2, sandbag throws for me just require a really good warm up. I have to make sure that I'm just warming up properly, getting that nice explosive twitch, getting my hips and legs ready to fire up. So I'm not going to be using a lot of caffeine if I were in that circumstance. But then we're looking at event number 3, which is a sandbag relay. That's going to be a lot more heart pumping action. You're going to want a lot more like intra-set recovery because people are going to be going at this for 45 to 60 seconds at a pretty high pace. So on top of doing some extra warm-ups, because we haven't really warmed up for any sort of endurance or longer effort thing for our legs yet, I'm going to maybe do some more like sprints or some dynamic warm-ups like some kicks, some high knees, some jumping jacks, things like that, on top of having a little bit of extra caffeine and, of course, electrolytes, because by that point, you're going to have been out in the sun for a couple hours. You're going to be sweaty. And you're going to need to replenish that. But think about, too, if that's an event where you're really going to be very warm and probably breaking a pretty good sweat, like get ahead of yourself with the electrolytes. If you think you're going to lose a lot at a certain point, you should be starting that process early. So then we go into that Farmer's 40. This is another one, again, just specifically talking about caffeine. For some reason, I find that grip events, this is something I've found over and over and over again. If I'm very stimulated right before something that's grip dominant, my grip tends to give out rather early. So I would wait to have like any sort of extra caffeine and then probably like go pretty big on a stony shoulder, because that's my last event and I would have no problems being very like up high energy wise. So if I was pacing that out, again, maybe a little caffeine just a little bit before event 1, maybe like a half scoop before event 3, and then maybe like a half or 3/4 or a full scoop before event 5. So a lot of people will overstimulate because they think they need to be really up high in this zone all day long. But what actually ends up happening is that's a very draining place to be. We have to make sure that we're preserving our energy throughout the course of the entire event. So if there's some events here or there where you're able to stay a little lower going into the event, while we're performing, we should be, again, in that alpha state where we are focused, highly energetic, but not so high that we're, seeing red or whatever, and not so low where we're just cool and calm. We need to be performing very high. But sandbag throws are something that, I can turn that on, boom, like right before I'm about to go. Log press, I tend to get a little more nerves and jitters, so I stay a little more elevated for that. Sandbag medley is another one where I can pretty much stay calm and turn that on to the minute right before I'm getting out there ready to do my lift. Farmers, I'm going to start kind of getting psyched up and getting ready to go. Same thing about 30 seconds beforehand. And then stone to shoulder, if that was me personally, I'd be so excited to do that I wouldn't really mind while I'm going through my warm-ups, like getting a little more excited and bringing my energy up high, because after that, we're all done anyways. So this is a really important one. So I guess I'm going to end it with this one. This is what it is all about, guys. This is what it's all about, is managing your energy, okay? Go into some of these from the very beginning. If you know how to selectively use your environment to your advantage. So let's talk again about if we're outdoors under the sun. If you are just somebody who's going to be out under the sun all day long, you're going to be exhausted quick. So if you're competing at something like that, right out the gate, own some space to where you can be comfortable and preserve your energy in between events. Of course, I haven't mentioned once anything about food, but that's a natural part of it. I don't want to really talk about that in this because that's a given. You should be fueling yourself and hydrating very well, but play to your environment. Don't wear a sweatshirt if it's going to be hot and outdoors. Bring even a fan, one of those portable fans or whatever if you have it. Cool. Bring ice water. Bring ice, so you can stay cool, manage your energy. If you sleep well, you're going to have a bigger energy bank for the entire day, okay? If you pack extra, you're not going to have to sweat or have any nerves about, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to need to go borrow somebody's wrist wraps. I don't have any chalk. When we can eliminate, the anxiety of not having these things, we have more energy to put into the right things, like your mood and being nice in your body language. It's all physical. Physical and mental is always connected no matter what. I don't care if you think that's wrong, you are wrong. It's always connected, all right? If you are nice, you are existing in a positive state that's going to allow you to make positive decisions, right? And if things go wrong, let's not plan for it, but then we can be adaptable and be able to adjust our game plan for how we need to continue on and be successful, all right? If you are ready, again, I meant this as in the tone of it's your time to go, get into your routine. So start strapping up to set your brain and get it going to know it's time. So you're not just thinking like, oh, what am I going to do? How many am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. No, you're just strapping up, getting your mind and your body ready to perform. Okay. So don't make mistakes. Just focus. Don't get too crazy on that one. That's really a simple one. But lastly, it really all comes down to how you manage your energy throughout the entire day. These are things you go to any single competition, you will see this. People are going to be like really, really up high from the very beginning, but you've got to start your day calm and strategically plan when to have those like big boosts of energy at the right moments. Now, again, with the caffeine, if you are just dumping a whole bunch of caffeine into your system and overstimulating, you will not be able to calm yourself back down and preserve that energy and bring it back up when you need it. You'll be able to do a lot better job having these like peaks and troughs over the whole day versus if you're just up here the whole day long, at some point you're going to crash and not be able to put out anymore, right? I mean, think of this as if you were going to have, let's say you had a really long day, like an 18, 20, 24-hour work day. That first coffee that you get is going to wake you up and you're going to hit really well. But by the time you're at your third or your fourth or your fifth, it just doesn't have the same level of kick and impact. So that's what I want you to think about when we're doing these like energy, let's call them energy boosts, these strategic energy boosts, is how can we use them strategically far enough away from each other so that we can make it impactful every time. If we're just sitting there slamming energy drinks all day and staying up here, you're not going to get a big impact by tapping into it, right? I hope that makes sense. So this is seriously the most important thing you could possibly do is learn how to manage your energy. So when I talk about all this stuff that many people think is nonsense, such as mindfulness, meditation, being present in the moment, eliminating decision fatigue and decision anxiety, this is why we are doing all of this, because we want to be able to put our energy into the things that are most important. If we're sitting around thinking about nerves and anxiety is literally thinking about the worst case scenario, we're just sending our energy into something that's not even happening, right? That's all it is. So these are really what all these tips are about is how do you manage your energy? Now, there's all sorts of things that we can say outside of this too, as far as, you have to make sure that you're peaking correctly going into this. You have to make sure that your training is not just frying you and driving you into the ground. But this is why, programs that I write and when we're getting ready for competitions, we have strategic periods of deloads and also a back off period before your competition. So when we're getting lower into fatigue, we're able to have that rebound effect to where our performance and our energy comes back up. So this is just part of it. You have to know that strongman and strength training and strength sports are a very demanding task, not just on your body, but on your mind and on your soul. So if we're being nice, if we're always practicing good body language, we always have a good mood and we're adaptable to change at all times, we know that we're going to be taken care of, and we know that this is all part of the plan and we're going to rise to the occasion when we need to. So these are some intangibles. I could talk on and on and on and on and on, but I'm happy to field any questions if we have any. We're going to sit tight for just another couple of minutes, but I appreciate any of you guys that were joining me on this. It's fun for me to do some of these things because I don't really view myself as somebody with like special genetic gifts or particular great talents. But when I really figured out how to put my mind in the right place and focus on the right things, that's when my performance really started going above and beyond. So you can go online and see all these different tips and tricks and like here's how you should train and here's this method to blow up your log press. But if you show up to competition and you're just for lack of a better term, like shooting your load all over the place and just draining your energy, Like right out the gate, it doesn't matter what special technique you have. It doesn't matter at all. Um, so this stuff to me is potentially more important than anything else. So if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to field. We'll give us about one more minute. Horace, I will be there briefly this weekend. Yes, sir. I'll be making an appearance. I know Patty and Sean will be there. A couple others out in there. So yeah, I will be stopping by, my brother. I will come say hello for sure. For sure. We're about 11 weeks out from World's Strongest Manatee. Very excited. If you don't know what to do, I've got a training program available inside clubstrongman.com. This is the first week of a 12-week program, so it's not too late to grab that. If you go to clubstrongman.com, we are doing a 7-day free trial right now. All the programs go straight onto the Train Heroic app at clubstrongman.com. We also do some private coaching calls. I'm going to be doing a lot more technique tutorials and video insights in there. We have a lot of good daily discussions about all things strongman in there. But if that's not for you, I will be here every Tuesday night. You can reach out to me on any of my social media channels. It is the same on everything: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Stephen M. Coyne, same as my YouTube here. But that's that. So I'm going to call it a wrap for tonight. If you're looking for any more Strongman talk, I'm going to send you over to the Ellison Fitness Innovations channel. They're going to be having an Alabama Strongman live stream talk starting here in about 10 minutes. So if you're looking to keep going here, check out Ellison Fitness Innovations. Yeah, so we've got Sean Fennelly is here. Sean Fennelly is in the Strongman Club. Jonathan Chappell's here. He's in the Strongman Club. We've got a lot of good stuff going on in there. So it's growing quickly. I would love for you guys to be a part of it, man. Because a lot of people throw around the word community, this and that, but it really is an awesome thing to be a part of a group and a community that wants you to get better and is giving you the resources to do it. So if you want to learn from me and some other top-notch world-class coaches, last night we had a coaching call with Joel Dirks, who's a pro strongman and has one of the strongest grips in the planet. That was an awesome call. We also had a call 2 weeks ago with Adam Dirks, who's a world record Atlas Stone loader. Next week, we're going to have Andrew Clayton, who's the 3-time world strongest man in the 105 kilo division. So we got a lot of cool stuff. I don't claim to know everything. So I'm looking for this club to bring in, a lot of these world-class talents to just give you one of those 2 tips, tricks, or ways of looking at things to help you improve. Because I do not pretend to know all of the answers. And no good coach does. If you ever come to a coach that says, I know everything, run as far away as fast as you can. So that's that. Check out clubstrongman.com. Guys, would love to see you there. Have a great Tuesday night. Thank you so much for watching, and stay strong. Have a championship evening, fellas and ladies.